This is the Big Fish Cares Podcast. Big Fish Cares Podcast. And here's your host, Benny Fisher.
What's up? We are back with another podcast today, and you guys are going to get a good story today. I got Mr. Brightside with me, Bobby Jones. What's up, Bobby? How you doing today, man?
Hey, man, just living the life, man. Pleasure to be here, bro. Honored to be on the podcast and ready to chat it up. Hopefully we can inspire some people today, my friend.
I don't think that's going to be a problem with your story, man. I've been following you for a little while just to give other listeners a little backstory of kind of how I got to meet Bobby. Is he's in the roofing industry. He's an entrepreneur. He's got a roofing company. We both sell GAF shingles. And I've been following him on social, man, and he's got a really powerful message. He's got an incredible story that is, I mean, it's 1 in a million. Let me just tell you that. Probably 1 in a billion. That's how incredible this story is. I just want to get right into it, man. Tell me a little bit about, here, I want to know this. What is the worst thing that you've ever had to go through? Let's start with that. Let's hook the audience, right, with the worst thing that you've ever experienced in life.
Yeah, that's a tough one, dude. I'd have to go like there's a moment in my story, so obviously we're gonna throw that out there for him. But there's a moment in my story where I was staring at 33 years in a prison sentence. Actually, that was my plea offer. So that was the offer that they were hoping I would take. And if I didn't take that, it was very likely that I was going to be doing like 60 years. And so I spent 7 months, man, staring at that kind of time in jail, in pretrial, praying, hoping, and wishing for something, an opportunity. And it was the scariest time of my life, man. During that time, some other stuff happened while I was in prison that made it even worse than you could imagine it already was. And it's just the scariest time of my life, man. And but I'm grateful for it because it made everything that I've accomplished and gone through ever since then seem so much easier to accomplish and go through. And so I'm grateful for it. But yeah, man, it was scary, man. I never thought I was going to ever get this chance at life again. And it was a scary time, dude.
We're taking advantage of it. I mean, I can definitely tell that. And after people hear this story, and I think they start following you and they start to really digest, you know, what a human being is able to overcome and achieve. You know, the gap is just like amazing. So you're sitting in a prison cell. You said you were in there for 7 months staring at this sentence, right? 33 years, maybe 60 years. What the freak did they have you hand up for, man?
So, yeah, it wasn't really that bad of a crime. I guess that's, you know, that depends on how you look at it. But the reason I was looking at so much time was because I was a habitual offender. So I was just, you know, I was a career criminal at that point. And so it wasn't the significance of that crime that had me looking at so much time. It was the pattern and the fact that I had been in and out of jail so many times. Interesting.
But what was the charge, though?
It was burglary.
Burglary. What'd you steal? Yep. Or what didn't you steal?
Yeah, exactly. I got caught.
What did they say that you stole?
I was guilty. I'll be honest.
There's no double jeopardy anymore, is there? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's way past that, dude. That was years ago now. But yeah, I was guilty, to be very clear. That was the part that made it so scary. You know, if you're staring at that much time and you're going 7 months and you're praying, you're hoping, and you're wishing, and the whole time you know you're innocent, I think that changes the situation. You know what I mean? There's a lot more hope. The problem was I was not dead guilty, caught red-handed guilty. And so it was a very scary time because I knew that I was guilty. And
how old were you at the time of this?
I was 21.
21. How old are you now?
I'm 37.
37. Wow. So you got a lot of time on the other side of it, right? A lot of time on the bright. You got more time on the bright side almost than you did on the dark side. You know, because I feel like you can't really go dark until like you're like 5 or 6 years old. We're going to get into your childhood and your origins a little bit. Yeah. But burglary.
Speaking of that, though, did you hear recently that 6-year-old that shot the school teacher?
Jeez, it's getting younger and younger.
Bro, 6 years old. How do you prosecute this guy? You know what I mean? It was intentional. He brought the gun to school. He shot the teacher. Knew that's what he was going to do. I don't know what you do with this as a you know. As a state, the prosecutors, I don't know what you do with that.
I don't know what you do with that. You just got to pray to God that people.
A long time out? I don't know.
I mean, wow,
bro,
that's crazy. I'm gonna go back to like when you were young, but I have a couple more questions about this because I want this to sit with the audience, right? Because most of the audience doubts probably ever been jailed. Most of my audience probably hasn't even been arrested. They probably know somebody has, but it's like when you're not in that world, like you're like, oh, why do people do that? Oh, what a knucklehead, right? They have so many misconceived, preconceived notions, like what criminals are like. Criminals all have hearts too. I think like everyone's born pure, and then the world just beats them up after so much exposure to different people, and depending on the people that you're around and the type of behaviors that there are, some people got it, a little bit worse than others. But we all have adversity, and we all have to overcome something. And this is the story of Bobby Jones. So, 21 years old. How many times had you have been in a jail cell before that? Just if you could guess, because it sounds like a lot.
Adult prison, probably 5 or 6 times, but I had been in and out of trouble since I was 13 years old.
Yeah,
so
like
there
detention
was
homes and like little one night stays, maybe. Yes, all right,
yeah.
Cool. So
But
you had some experience of like in there. The people in there probably didn't faze you, right? Like that wasn't all that. It was just like, I'm 21, dude, and this is it. Like I want to be in here.
Yeah.
These are gonna be my boys. Like might as well have to adapt. What do you remember if you can think back? Like what's it like when you're a career criminal and then you got to be like, all right, well, I guess I always knew I was going to end up here, and here I am. What was the thoughts?
Yeah, so at that time, there was a lot of that. Exactly what you're saying, Bang. It's like I remember vividly one night, the sun was setting. I'm looking out my window. It's like this little narrow window in my jail cell, and I'm looking out, and I'm looking over the building next to me. I remember it like it was yesterday, and there's barbed wire running the top of that building, and just over that, you could see the sun setting a little bit, right? And I'm looking out there, and I just think the reality of all of it has been sitting with me for a few weeks at that point, and I was just like, this is it, I'm gonna be in jail for the rest of my life, or at the very least, I'm going to be in and out of jail for the rest of my life, right? Because I had no other data to support anything other than that at that point. And so in that moment, I was like, I just got to get good at this because this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. I'm going to be in jail or in and out of jail for the rest of my life, and I just got to accept it.
What type of crimes, did you do before you got caught with that burglary? Like, give us a glimpse of all the different things that you've got in trouble for, all the stupid stuff that you've done. Just high level. I don't need all the details right this second. Just to give
of course.
the audience was this guy just a petty theft guy? Like, was he beating people up? Like, what were you doing?
No, this is a good question because a lot of times, if I had been consistent with my crimes, Benny, it would have not been as bad in the courtroom. Because my crimes were all over the place, that's why they looked at me as such a menace to society, if you will. So my first charge was a robbery. That was at 17 years old. I got charged as an adult. So my first adult charge was a robbery.
What'd you take, or what'd you steal, or
it's kind of a weird situation, actually. I ended up getting into a fight with a guy who owed me money, and then at the end of the fight, I reached into his pocket and took the money he owed me.
So it was a tough collection. That was all. It was just a hard-nosed collection. Hard-nosed collection. Well, what else in between that
I had another burglary, and then I had a cocaine charge where I was selling and distributing cocaine. It ended up being possession with intent to distribute cocaine. Originally, the arrest was for trafficking cocaine.
How much? How much weight?
It was like 16 and a half grams, so it wasn't.
Oh, so it was like just a little party supply, just a little bit. A little bit to get all your friends through the night. You know what I mean? But not like you weren't Pablo Escobar.
No. If I was, I wouldn't be here. That would have probably.
Well, and the only reason I know that, and a lot of people actually don't even know this. I haven't really actually told this live on my podcast ever. My story. I actually probably got to figure out how to do that once. But I got busted for selling cocaine, and it was like little tiny bags.
That's what mine was. It was individually bagged.
Yeah, and then some dude, had a DUI, and then he wanted to get off that charge. He's like, hey, I can give you this guy. He's been peddling me this, and whatever. Hey, best thing that ever happened to me because I got straightened back out. So it's like we always learn from the adversity. But I had already seen what the bright side of regular life looks like. But for you grew up in a life of like you kind of were always ingrained in this like dark world where like you didn't really have like a whole lot of, maybe I guess as the world would say, morals, and like you didn't have like a whole lot of people to support like a what we call, I don't know, a normal life, or like, you know, with the Partridge Family or the Brady, whatever you want to call it. Like, and I want to get into that a little bit because we talked about what it's like, you know, to be 5 years old, 6 years old, and be like, all right, looking around and be like, all right, you know, you can watch TV, right? So you can see the dream on TV, and you're like, this is not me. Like, I'm actually the one, you know, I'm like the Sopranos side of things, but probably 10 times worse, right?
Yeah. So it was weird, Benny. You know, it's interesting because at the time you don't have anything to compare it to, so everything seems normal. You know what I mean? Like, so at the time, like, it's not nearly as significant of an impact as you look back and think it should have been because you have nothing to compare it to. And again, I want to say very clearly, like, my parents, they were loving, but they had their own demons, you know, and my parents both struggled with addictions. They had, you know, good ways of parenting, and then they had their ways of parenting. And, you know, there were definitely strong demonstrations of love, but it showed up in ways like supporting a victim mentality. If I got into trouble, my parents would help me blame somebody else. And so I had this victim mentality like ingrained in me. So if anything was going wrong, I knew to blame other people. I knew that it could not, there's no way it was my fault. You know what I mean? And so my parents, we didn't have much in the beginning anyway. And so the addiction, definitely kind of took a worse turn as we got older, and things got a little bit more, me and my sister got a little bit more neglected, and that's when the school kind of steps in. But, you know, it's interesting, again, going back to the fact that you don't know what you don't know. I'm growing up, I don't know that we're even poor, you know what I mean? Because I don't know. And
Where'd you live at?
I lived in Magnolia, Delaware, but I lived in a single wide trailer. It was in bad condition there. It was right next to a trailer park, not technically in the trailer park, but again, you know, it was a really poor situation. But again, I try not to sound like, because I don't need I was okay. I was okay. You know what I mean? And there came a time where my parents their addiction distracted them. They started to really neglect what we needed as kids, and we would show up to school looking ratty and, you know, out of good condition. And so that's when the state stepped in, and they would come in, take us and put us into foster care. My parents would get their act together. They'd put us back. And this would go on until eventually they did take us for quite a long time, and put us into different foster homes, me and my sister. And so, yeah, it's wild, man, because, you know, growing up, you know, I go to school, I find out that we don't have money because I don't have the shoes that everybody else has, and that's what, you know, makes you popular or cool. So my way of being popular or cool, or at least getting attention, was acting out. So I had this environment where I was seeing way more bad than good, and the bad becomes the norm, even though I knew right from wrong. When you see that, it becomes so normal for you, and then you add the idea that I'm going to act out in an effort to get attention because I can't fit in with the rest of the school. So, you know, it's no excuses. Like I said, I knew right from wrong, but I chose wrong.
Do you think, I don't know, that school district, would you say, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, with like 10 being like a super affluent school district and 1 being like in the ghetto, poor as all get out, like where would that school district rank, you think? Like, now looking back, now that you have a little bit more perspective.
Yeah, I would say it was like, you know, probably like a 3 or a 4.
Okay,
you
know, a little tougher.
Yeah, and
so like, there's a bunch of kids like you. There wasn't. You just weren't like the one out of, like, you know, like there had to be more of this going on. Probably, you just right.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, it's crazy. My office manager here, she went to school with me, and she was in and out of foster care as well. So we bonded over that over the years, and we went to school together too. We never knew it at the time. But, you know, and again, it's not advertised, so you wouldn't know it at the time.
Right, yeah.
But to your point, for sure, you know, the school I went to, the school district I went to, was mostly a black school. You know, it just, it was, I don't know, I just think it was different than what most people experience. But again, at the time, it was all I knew. When we went into foster care, though, I did get moved all over. So in 6th grade, I ended up in 6 different school districts.
Wow.
And, yeah, it was crazy, dude. I mean,
so you had to learn how to adapt quick, man. You're like a chameleon.
Very quick.
Bobby Jones, Mr. Brightside, Mr. Chameleon. You can move, bob and weave. You could, like, adapt. You could fit in, because you learned a lot of skills, though, through that, I bet. Like, a lot of skills that you use today to be able to, like...
I'm so grateful.
I know,
I'm so
man.
grateful, man. It's crazy, and we'll get into it in a minute. But there's, I can look at my life and my journey, and I know for a fact that something greater than all of us is steering this ship. You know what I mean? It's like there are moments where I was removed from one situation and put in another, and in the moment I think it's the worst thing ever, and yet I would find out years later that it saved my life probably. And so there's so many examples of that, I try not to ignore, the serendipity of a situation, or if you see something that just seems like it's making too much sense, I kind of try to flow with it.
That's so true. I mean, you've obviously done a lot of work on yourself. You've done a lot of, soul searching. I don't know if have you ever done therapy? It sounds like you've probably done some therapy.
Yeah, I did some therapy, but I did a lot of self-love, self-worth, challenges over the years, and just dove into that conversation from almost an obsessive level, and that has been groundbreaking for me for probably like the past 7 or 8 years. So even after I had been out of trouble, there was this breakthrough moment where I was like, you know what, I'm good enough, and not only am I good enough, I'm incredible.
Better
as long
for
as
it.
I believe.
Yeah, better for it, right? So let's I think there's a couple of different ways we can go with this. Let's go back to the childhood, back to that, and then we'll figure out what happened after prison.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to see, everybody loves a good comeback story, man. It's amazing. I gotta see that transformation, how that took place over the course of years, I'm assuming, and still transforming, right? You're one of these guys that we're constantly transforming. We're not transformed. It's not past tense. It's a current and an active situation. But I think a lot of the growth and development comes from, learning about our origins, right? Where we came from. So is your mom and dad still around?
Yeah. So, my dad actually cleaned up his act. He actually, if I'm being honest, he's probably the reason I'm such a good salesperson and such a good, the gift of gab definitely came from him.
There you go.
He was always just a hustler of one way or the other, and so he's got his own business. He's doing good today. My mom, she cleaned up her act a little bit more recently, and she's doing good as well.
So have you ever got a chance to really talk with them to figure out because I'm sure their life wasn't all, it probably wasn't roses either, man. I mean, when they grew up, right? So you ever go back to figure out how many generations and what happened to the Jones lineage to where, people could say, oh, it maybe took a wrong turn, and then they, and it was like a generation after generation after generation thing where it's like, wow, it's like, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse until you, I'm assuming, are the one that broke the mold on your family's generational curse, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, so my dad, he was in and out of trouble when he was a kid, but his family was nowhere near as poor as our family was, and the same thing for my mom. My mom ran into plenty of challenges. She was definitely, of her siblings, she was the one that fell into the trap of addiction early. My mom also had cancer, and so my mom had cancer, and they did 11 surgeries in a 12-month time frame, and she had a tremendous amount of abdominal pain post-surgery, and it was all, female reproductive cancer. So they did surgery after surgery trying to remove it. My mom's greatest downfall was when they finished with that surgery and she was cancer-free. They prescribed her with OxyContin, and it was, at the time, they still actually had the larger dose, which was 160 milligram OxyContin. They got rid of that pretty quickly. It was like first 2 years, maybe 3 years, they outlawed that one, and it went to 80 milligrams.
Man, that put people under.
Oh yeah, it did, and that's
you get a person that's not in pain or doesn't actually need it. They take that, they die. I mean, I know guys that died off 160 milligrams.
Correct. Yeah. My mom, she, and I'm not saying she took it exactly as prescribed.
No, come on.
You know what I mean?
We don't have to talk about the opiate epidemic and how it started with pharmaceuticals, and then how nobody gives you enough education, right? It really, at the end of the day, it really comes down to education and then being able to make a choice, and then you still make the choice, and it's people still make choices. I mean, I had, I struggled with that, and, I knew right from wrong, and but I was educated about it. I was like, I never blamed anybody, right? I was like, I chose to do it because I wanted to feel good. And
that's right.
So interesting. What, So growing up, you said you had a sister, right?
Yeah, I got a sister. We're Irish twins, bro. My mom showed up at the hospital for her 6-week checkup after giving birth to me, and they were like, "You're pregnant."
Dang,
I blame my
man.
father.
Wonder if that was your dad's fault or your mom's fault. Probably.
I blame my dad.
Yeah, are they still together? Or are they?
No, they're not. And honestly, that was the best thing for both of them. Honestly, you get two people together that are influenced by one another, both of them with not the best intentions, and it could be catastrophic. And that ended up being a reality for them for sure. My dad cleaned up soon after separation. And then my mom took more time, but I'm very grateful that she's found her way through that. She's a very supportive grandmother now, and I'm grateful for that. So
I can't wait to hear some of the stories over the last few years of getting to feel what it feels like to be, more, up and coming and normal and thriving, right? Because there's there's that bottom, right? And again, like you said earlier, you don't really know what the bottom is when you've never seen the top. So, if you've never seen that, which doesn't sound like you ever did, it's just kind of always, it's almost like you flatline bottom, always stayed there. I want to know, because I want to get to the other side, right? I want to get to the bright side. How'd you get out of jail if you were facing 30 to 60 years?
Yeah, so it's like I said, I was caught red-handed. I'm in there, I'm praying, hoping, and wishing. In that situation, I've had some people comment on my Facebook, and they're like, "You had to have this and that." I'm like, man, look, when you're in that situation, there's nothing you don't think of. You know what I mean? It's survival mode, right? Like if you're life or death, you're going to consider a lot of things that you might not have considered in a normal situation. So I was looking for any way to get out of my situation for sure. However, they all seemed hopeless. Which is why, I fell to my knees. I was desperate. I prayed. I don't even know what I was praying to. I had this gut feeling, man, that if I was given another chance, I was going to reach greatness. And I leaned into that for as much as I could. 7 months is a long time to, wait for what's going to happen to you. There's a lot that happened during that prison bid that made it very, very scary for me. But
yeah, you mentioned that earlier in the podcast. I mean, is that something you're willing to share? What
for sure. Dude, there's so many layers to my story, just like anybody's story.
Yeah.
And, I want to be respectful of the time here. But yeah, I was about 2-3 months into that stay when my little cousin caught a murder charge and showed up on the same tier in the prison that I was in. And the problem with that situation, I'm very grateful that he was put on my tier, because if he'd have been put on another tier, it would have been very bad. But he was put on my tier, on my section of the prison, and 3 doors down from me. The problem is the guy that he killed had a lot of family in that prison. And from the moment that he showed up there, everything changed.
He was a target.
Oh yeah, dude!
And you're trying to protect. You probably got to be scrappy. Then they find out you're your cousin. Now you're a target, right? And then you got to grow up even faster. At 21 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a little boy. He's just a young kid. But even though he
was 18,
but you grew up in an environment where I'm sure you were a little feistier than a guy like me when I grew up. I was. I was afraid of everything. You were probably this lipping off at the mouth, ready to fight everybody, right? I can imagine that.
It was that small man complex too, man.
How tall are you, by the way?
I'm 5'9".
Woo! That's not that small, bro. That's not that small.
But when I was a kid, at that time in my life, I was like $140 probably.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're trying to make a name for yourself, right? So you're trying to be somebody. You're just trying to be somebody, the wrong somebody, because you didn't know any different.
Yeah.
So what was that like? What was the hardest thing? What was the closest time that you came to I might not make it here in prison, dude. They might shank you, right? I've watched these movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, man, I'll tell you what's crazy is you try to extract lessons from everything, right? And I'll tell you that that time was probably my first real example of how important relationships are, right? Not because my cousin had me in there, but it was because the 3 months that I had spent in there with people who building relationships, making meals together with people, so that when I needed help, I had people around me willing to help because I did right by people. I treated people properly. I was there for them. And so when this happened, I was back to back with my cousin trying to protect him, but I had people looking from across the room to make sure that if something went down, it wasn't going to be terrible. They weren't going to get us and get us good. Now, the other thing that's really interesting in a situation like that is your sense of awareness goes way high, dude. Like it gets, I remember, and he wouldn't leave his cell because obvious reasons, but the target wasn't on me. It was on me because I was protecting him. Right. And so I was free to, to do as I had been doing. And so I was out playing basketball at Yard. We're playing full court, running up and down the court, right? And this is why I say things happen for a reason, right? Because it just so happens I'm at one end of the court long enough to hear a group of guys say on the side of the court that they're going to run in on the white boy on A tier after rec. Now, Benny, there's 3 white boys on A tier. It's me, my cousin, and one other old white guy at the end. It wasn't hard for me to figure out who they were after, right? So, but because I heard that and my awareness was, I was aware enough to hear that, I had the wherewithal to be the first one in after rec, get to my cousin, tell him to get his shoes on and that they're coming. And as soon as I turned around from saying that to him, there they were. Again, relationships. 2 of the people I knew very well, they were hoping to catch him by himself so that they didn't have to fight me. And so for that reason, those 2 bailed out and said, I'll get him next time, and walked away. The other 2 I didn't know, and so we ended up having to fight them. But it was that kind of a thing.
Where's the guards at and all this stuff? Do they not have?
Dude, it's so
unmanned. It doesn't work like that, right? Like everyone's they're just
so
they're employees that don't even want to work, right? Like they're probably not.
Well, it's not so much that. It's just they can't see everything. They can't see everything, And you're at a moment where it's like a transition. Everybody's coming in from Yard. You're having mass crowds moving through different areas. It's really not easy to see something like that. And so,
was there crazy incidents happening in that prison all the time, or was it very rare? So maybe tell me, what was the vibe like? Was there
people are killed in that prison all the time. 2017, one of the lieutenants was beheaded in that prison. In 2017, yeah.
Wow.
Bobby,
they're going to make a movie about you, bro.
Oh, dude. Listen, there's a lot of people out there with stories, man, and I'm grateful for mine for sure.
I'm like, wow. I mean, that's like, and I'm just trying to think like, so at that point, at 21 years old, when you're dealing with all that, can you think back to like maybe what you were like? Did you have any hope, even like for your whole life? Did you have anybody you looked up to? Was there anybody like, man, I wish I could just be like that guy? Or that, like, who was that for you? What was like your biggest role model that you thought was like something on the brighter side back then? Who was that?
So my uncle, who has a pivotal role, he was an important role in my story as well. You'll hear in a little while. He was 9 to 5 guy, but had been working for the same company since he was like 19 years old. He had stability and not much more than that, and that was in honesty, like I've looked back, numbers of times, and from everybody I can see in my sphere at the time, he was the one that probably had it all together in my eyes,
And tell me what really what the all together look like now, looking back. Like what does that look like, so people at home can understand? Like he probably didn't have it all together, right?
No, not at all. In fact, I love my uncle very much.
Best or the worst type of situation, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Exactly. He was working in a factory and he made decent money. But the problem was, man, is I just seen him a couple days ago, and it's like all those years of working, dude, and he's still struggling. And it breaks my heart, man, because as you know, man, there's other sides, there's other roads that you can go down that are so much more rewarding, and not, I'm not from a place of like just go get rich and screw everybody else, but the freedom that comes along with making decent money should not be, ignored. It just shouldn't be.
Well, people don't know what they don't know. They get stuck in that what they call rat race, right? And for lack of a better term, that's probably because that's what their parents did, Yes. And then hey, my mom always told me, hey, make sure you go to college, get a job. If you don't go to college, at least get a job. Stay at the same job for 40 years. You retire there. Get the certificate that they hand you, and just be glad that you can just keep working. And
yeah, that's it, dude.
And then when you hear them complaining about money in their life, I'm like, all right, we'll change it. Like, just change it.
Right.
Like as a little kid, I was just like, why don't we just change it? Like, change it. Oh, shut up, kid. You don't know what you're talking about. That's what they used to say to me. They literally used to say that. So how'd you make it out of jail, man?
So I get to court, and in Delaware, at least how it works in Delaware, I don't know how it works everywhere, but in Delaware, they'll set like a trial date, right? And your trial date really is another time for them to try to get you to take a plea offer. And then if you don't take the plea offer, then they're going to start selecting jury members, okay? So we're at that court date. And when you're in prison and you're going to court, they take you in a bus, they take you to the courthouse, they put you in a holding cell with all the other prisoners that have court that day. And so I'm in the holding cell, and my public defender, because I didn't have any money, so I had a court-appointed attorney, comes to me and he says, hey, listen, the plea hasn't changed at all, but I've got an idea. I think I want to take a shot at this. And I was like, listen, dude, I'm up for whatever idea you have, right? And so he grabs me and 3 other people from the holding cell. And he says, we're going to take the 4 of you up into the jury box, put you in the jury box. We're going to bring the witness/victim into the courtroom, and we're going to see if he can identify you. Now, here's the problem with this, Benny, and I'm for it because what do I got to lose? But this guy has been showing up to every court date. Like shit he didn't even have to be there for, he'd show up at, And I just really was like, and the other 3 people that we pulled from the holding cell, one of them's a Spanish guy. One of them's this old white dude with a beard, because you got to imagine there wasn't a whole lot of similar-looking guys.
A black guy and a brown guy walk in with a white guy, and they're like, hey, who did it?
Yeah, exactly. And there was one other white guy that was a similar age, but he had, like, tattoos on his face and, like, literally gauges in his ears and stuff. So it's like, it's just, obviously he's going to pick me, yeah.
Yeah.
So we get into the courtroom, they sit us down in the jury box, and they bring this guy into the courtroom. And in the courtroom, there's this little spot where there's like the gate, right? And you have to walk past this gate to get a little closer. And so they escort this guy into the courtroom. And from the moment that he walks into the courtroom, Benny, he's looking me dead in my face, like staring right at me, to the point that I don't even think he knew that there was other people in the courtroom. That's how focused on me he was, right? So I'm like, there's that, So he walks up closer to me. They open the gate. He walks closer to me, and he's looking me dead in my face. Doesn't look at the judge, doesn't look at the state, the prosecutor, anything. And he says in front of the entire courtroom, he said, the man that did this is not here in the courtroom today.
Wow. Now, was that like your public defender had to have like arranged this with the prosecution, right? And like the judge? Like,
yeah, there's not much that they can...
That's not typically like the way they do a lineup. So like, is that like procedural? Like, how do they get away? Like, how do they like? How is that good enough to be like, oh, okay, cool. Let's wrap you up. Oh, go ahead, let Mr. Jones loose.
Yeah, well, I think had he said anything other than that, like it wouldn't have impacted the case as much, right? If he would have said like, I think it's him, I'm not sure, then they probably would have kept moving, right? Like, cool. He at least picked me out of it. He might not have been 100% sure, but at least he picked me. For the fact that he said that I'm not in the courtroom, the man that did this is not in the courtroom today, it changed the entire thing. Like now it's not even, well, he doesn't quite remember it. No, he said it in front of the courtroom without any hesitation. And there's a lot of reasons, Benny, why I think he might have done this. I mean, honestly, it's funny, man, because I'll see people post on my comments on my social media, like stories and stuff like that, and they'll be like, that's because the man that did that was not the man that was in the courtroom that day. In like saying that I had changed already and had become a different version of myself already in that time. Now, it's a little foo-foo, whatever.
Facts are facts. So, I mean, you know you did it.
Yeah, of course.
You know you did it, right? Like,
right. No, my point is they're like saying, oh, that's because he knows you changed, whatever. Here's what I think, right? I got caught in the act red-handed, which means I didn't complete the act of the crime, which means I didn't take the stuff that I was there to take. And perhaps this guy felt that 7 months for a failed crime was plenty of time for me to have paid my my dues.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? Could have been
this was a random guy. Like when you did this, you obviously didn't know
connection.
The guy. Like you, like just it was completely random. Just like
yep, it was set up through a girl I knew. And I knew that they had high-end studio equipment in this house, and we went in to get it, and that's what happened. And there's a couple of things here. One, if I could have contacted this guy, Benny, I probably would have, but we couldn't. We tried to think of any idea on how we could eventually contact this guy, and we just had roadblocks and just dead ends in every avenue.
You know, like at this point now, just to go back and just be like, wow, man, you changed my life.
Oh, I know that too. Like afterwards, now the other side though, Benny, the other side though is I was scared to death to do that.
Yeah, you never saw the movie Double Jeopardy. Yeah,
yeah. I'm like, yo, they're gonna mess around and open his case back up if I have contact with him, or he's gonna be like, oh, it was you. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what I was up against. You know what I mean?
I hear you, man. I hear you.
So,
well, again,
so
you tell that story long enough, unless he's dead. How old was he back then? You think he's still alive?
He was an older guy. This was 07. So
and you think he was in his 50s, 60s? And you think I don't know.
Probably in his 50s, yeah, for sure.
Well, it was definitely in Delaware, though, right? Like,
yeah.
Delaware's not,
I know. I mean, I tell my story
big.
all the time. You know, maybe he'll hear it. I'd love to ask him that
question. Well, you know who your
question
public defender is, right?
Yes.
Well, I mean, why can't we just go? Listen, don't put me on something, bro. I'll find out.
Yeah.
I'll get the public defender. I'll get you. We'll reminisce about the old days, and I'll be like, "Hey, public," because they all have records and stuff.
Records,
everybody has to. And also, at the end of the day, like I would love to know. Do you know where that public defender's? Where's his career at? Because public defenders do what they do to try to make a name for themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like they're taking shots all day,
yeah,
so they can get that big job at at the good firm, right, where people actually pay money instead of the government.
Yeah.
Have you ever talked to him or?
No. Again, same thing. I remember his name though. It was like Mr. Swarbinski, I think it was, and it was so crazy, Benny, because he had the like most squeaky and like stuttering voice you could imagine. And the moment I met him, I was like, I'm screwed. Like, but I was wrong because he ended up being the one that put this whole thing together. But you know, in that moment, Benny, it's crazy because like everything changed in that moment in that courtroom that day. Like everything.
Was your mom and dad in the courtroom by chance?
No.
Did they support you at all, like through this? They probably were still just trying to do their own thing, right? Because they were probably addicted to.
No, but my mom and dad, like I told you before, bro, if they, you know, they would find the way to blame somebody else. Like they would help me in that way. And no, they
weren't. You had no support, like not like you were just on.
My wife, me and my wife were already together at this point.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah, dude, I met my wife.
And you're like that. What? Oh, I'm gonna interview her. She's the one I should have interviewed, not you, brother.
Dude, she's the real G, bro. I will tell you. Listen, real quick. I met her. I was 16. She was 15. Before I caught my first robbery charge as an adult. And my oldest daughter, Ariana, when I went to jail to serve that sentence, I left Heather behind, and she was pregnant with our first daughter. I met my oldest daughter, Ariana, in prison.
And you guys are still together to this day.
And we're still together.
Everybody,
yes,
like, wow. And then I'm here. And again, I don't know your wife, but like, I mean, she probably grew up in the same neighborhood, right? I mean, it wasn't like.
No, she grew up a lot better than I did.
Well, how did she?
But with that being said,
how'd she find you? Like, how was she attracted? Was she like she likes those bad boys, doesn't she? She
I mean, who doesn't? You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, man. I was actually. We didn't go to school together. Or
that
anything.
is so true, man. Why do girls love the bad boys?
I don't know, dude.
Nice guys always finish last, man. It's so true.
Right. That's right. Dr. Jordan Peterson has a video about that. I have to send it to you. But anyway,
you think it's because they need the excitement? Like they need like that excitement? Like it's because they're not feminine energy. Like they don't have that. Like it's just not built into them.
I think, you know, bad boys in general have a degree of confidence about them that I think ultimately is the attraction factor for them. That I think just pulls them in. You know what I mean? And
that's a good take. I like that.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. But I'm telling you right now, that girl, she's seen potential in me far before I saw potential in myself. Far before
Heather.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, she's my hero, man. She's my hero, and she was there for me through it all, dude. We
gotta find Mr. Swarbinski, dude. Listen, you got you know how to get this thing done. Go in documentary style. Say, hey, you know, I'm trying to start at the courthouse, work your way backwards.
I'm still. I live like 3 miles away from that courthouse where that happened. I'm at my office right now, and it's like 2 blocks away. So
I can talk to you for 4 hours, bro. I think like we're gonna have to maybe continue this thing. But here, I got
how long we've been going.
I got 20 or 30 minutes left. I'm just saying. Now I wanted to know more about Heather. I want to know more about I want to get into some details. Like, all right, so you got out. All right, then what? So you just got the hall pass, the free pass of a lifetime, get out of jail free card. You're playing Monopoly. I don't know if you've ever played that when you were a kid.
Yeah.
But you got the real get out of jail free card. What'd you do with it, man? Like 21 years. I guess you had a wife and a kid that you wanted to go hang out with, but like.
Yeah, but dude, I had burned so many bridges that I couldn't go there. Right, her parents weren't letting me come there. She was living with her mom. So
thank God, dude. Somebody's got a brain on them. You shouldn't be allowed anywhere close to that.
I know. I used to tell her all the time, you need to get as far away from me as you can. But I'm grateful that she didn't listen to any of us. Yeah, man, in that moment in court, it changed everything for me. I joke often, or I don't really joke, but I mean it because I mean it. But, I was freed from prison. But at that same time, dude, I was freed from a lifetime of victim mentality. When I came home from jail, dude, I was like, I'm not making any more excuses. None. I'm not making any more excuses. I'm going after this thing called life. And and they're going to have to prove it to me that I'm not worth it, because I'm not going to tell myself no anymore. I'm going after this thing. And so I came home. I didn't have any money, no clothes, no car, no license, nothing. I ended up sleeping on my uncle's couch in a trailer park down the road. And
uncle that you looked up to, right?
Yes. Yep.
All right.
Yep. He was, I'm so blessed. He had a 4-bedroom trailer and it was fully occupied, but he gave me the couch. That's all I needed, And so I'm very grateful for that. There's some people in my life, man, that I'm very grateful for, and he's one of them. I had 3 felony convictions at that point. So getting a good job I had always been told, and that was one of the other limiting beliefs that I had bought into. I was told my whole life, if you get into trouble, you're going to ruin your life. And so once I got into trouble, I had bought all the way into that. So most of that criminal behavioral pattern came on the back end of just this absolute commitment or conviction of, I've ruined my life. What do I have to live for? And so once I just ignored that and started ignoring that, my life changed. So came home with 3 felony convictions. I was like, look, if I keep doing what I've always done, I'm going to keep getting what I always got, right? So I said, all right, I'm going to try something different. So I borrowed a suit off my cousin. Now, I just told you I was 5'9". He's 6'2", so the suit was a little big.
Yeah, it was like your dad's baggy suit, man, that you had to put
bro.
on, right? Yeah.
And I was like, I had pulled the sleeves up, and I'm like walking like this into places. But
I look like a professional.
Yeah. So I started walking into places that I thought might hire me, and I would just walk in there and say, I'm here for my interview, because if I check this box on this application, they're going to keep telling me no before they even talk to me. So I showed up to a major retail store. I walked to the back. I said, hey, my name is Bobby Jones. I'm here for my 11 o'clock interview. Just like that. And they said to me, Mr. Jones, we don't have any interviews scheduled for today. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, man, but I scheduled my interview for 11 o'clock. But no worries. I'll just have a seat here and I'll wait. I'm sure we'll figure it out. And I sat down.
You talk just like that, because you speak very well. You don't speak like someone coming out of the hood, bro.
No, again, you have to change, dude. I'm wearing a suit. I'm wearing a suit now. You know what I mean?
You knew how to talk like a suburban white guy. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yes.
You know how to go back and forth?
Oh, yeah.
That's resourcefulness,
sure.
people. If
Absolutely.
you're listening to me, this man, he was like a chameleon. He was resourceful. He had to learn how to adapt. And he was able to pull it off, man.
I've been talking to judges and attorneys since I was 13 years old, trying to talk my way out of trouble. I had to adapt in some way there, And so, talking professionally probably came mostly from that. But nonetheless, I sit down, I wait. I'm sitting there in this big-ass suit on this bench waiting for what was probably like 40 minutes, Benny. And this manager comes around. He peeks his head around the corner at me. That's all I got. And he's seen me in this suit, and he was like, all right, send him on back, right? So I go back for an interview. Now, here's what I didn't consider when this happened. I had gotten released from prison in late September. This is early October. And so I'm being pulled back for this interview, and I crush the interview, and they give me a job, right? And I'm like, holy smokes, that was easy. But then they tell me, you're being hired as a seasonal associate. So you're here for Christmas, and it's going to be temporary. When we're finished with the holiday season, we're going to be letting you go. So there's many reasons why I point that out. One, that's why they didn't do a criminal background check on me, because if they'd have done the criminal background check, they would have rescinded their offer immediately. I'm sure of it. But because they had already planned on letting me go, they never wasted their time with the criminal background check.
Yeah, they needed to hire you quick. Christmas is coming.
Right.
Man. Yeah, they skipped some processes, thank God.
Yeah. But I put this suit on to get the job. So I'm like, okay, if they're telling me they're going to fire me now, and I went above and beyond to get the job in the first place, where can I go above and beyond to try to keep this job? And so they had put me in the electronics department.
Where did you work at? What was the place called?
It was Walmart. It was Walmart.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, but for me, I was already on clouds at that point.
Oh, I get it. There's nothing wrong with that. I was just I'm trying to get the vibe of like the place,
for
right?
sure.
Like I didn't know if it was Best Buy or Walmart or some mall.
Walmart actually commented on my TikTok about this story, and everybody went crazy. It was
you make them famous, bro. You know how to market that. We'll talk about that later, man.
Yeah. So anyway, so I get put into electronics, and I don't know a whole lot about electronics at this point.
You just know how to steal them, bro.
So I show up to this department, and I'm looking back at the TV wall, right? And I'm like, man, these pictures look crazy blurry, right? I thought they're supposed to be high definition. So I start learning about these TVs as much as I can. I ended up going on YouTube, learning. And one day I came in, I worked overnight, didn't ask anybody, and I hooked up all the TVs to high definition. I cleaned them all off. I made sure they were all running the same loop, the same video signal, cleaned everything off, went home, learned more about the TVs, and came back to the department. I spoke to every associate in the department and told them all that I could tell them about the TVs, everything that I'd learned. And so in the next 2 weeks, you couldn't even buy a TV from that Walmart. That's how much we were crushing it. We had sold every TV that was in stock. Every TV that was coming in the next 2 weeks was already sold. And I was making such a splash through this like one little avenue that I had decided to go all in on. And the store manager comes over to the department a few weeks after I've started, and they're like, what is going on? And everybody in the department, including the department manager, points at me and was like, this freaking guy. And the next day, they called me back for an interview for a management position, and 2 months after I was released from prison, I was a customer service manager on the front end of Walmart. Again, not the most prestigious management position, not the most glorified position.
They didn't make you go through any more paperwork, right? They skipped that again, right? You didn't still have to tell them that you were a criminal.
Yes.
You just kept on going, right?
I just kept on going, right?
You had to. You got to build up some credibility before you tell your story.
That's right. And
you're afraid, yeah.
Dude, at that time, you couldn't tell me shit, bro. I was on top of the world, man. But here's what's happening, bro. This is the crazy thing about that time is I'm shattering through these self-limiting beliefs. I am busting through them I'm
but on your own, though.
Yeah.
No books, no mentor,
YouTube,
no motivational speakers,
Nope. Just YouTube. And I listened to a lot of Brian Tracy at that time.
Okay.
And that's what was, just telling me, the power of self-confidence and all this stuff. And I was just like, look, I'm going for it, But it's one thing to hear that stuff on an audiobook or somebody telling you that. It's another thing to demonstrate that for yourself and prove it to yourself, right? So I'm shattering through all these things. You can't get a good job if you've gotten a criminal record. They just told you they're going to fire you, right? They just told you that they're going to fire you. Now I've got that, right? And I'm like, yo, you've got to be kidding me. Here people have been there 5-6 years. They're looking at me all pissed off. I just got there a few weeks ago and I passed some of them. So I'm like, if that's all it takes, why don't I just keep going, right? And so Zig Ziglar had a quote, and he said, if you go as far as you can see, when you get there, you'll be able to see further. Keep going. Mm-hmm. Now, Benny, you made a comment earlier, and you talked about us basically always remaining a student, right? Because I believe, and I know you do too, the more you improve, the more you realize how much more you can improve, right?
That's the new addiction, Bobby.
Yeah.
That's the new addiction that guys like us find, and people don't get it. They're like, how did the guy that comes from such a messed up situation is this new guy that I'm looking at? It's because we found a new addiction. It's just a lot healthier, and it keeps us going and going and going.
That's right. Yeah, man. So anyway, I ended up getting another management position there. I was wearing a tie to work. I was running the whole left side of the store.
Nerd.
I was taking, but dude, to me, it was like, again, going back to the suit, right? When I put that suit on, I was like, yo, because I had imagined when I came out of prison, one of Brian Tracy's exercises was, imagining your ideal self, right? And what he looks like, what he talks like, who he's surrounded by, what kind of car does he drive, what kind of house does he, and I envisioned this version of myself, and in my vision, it was a tie, it was a suit. So to me, I was like, I can't do a lot of the other stuff that I want to do, but I could do this because my man's got a suit right here. And so I have a picture of me standing in front of my car at the time. I have a tie on, I have a button up, and I have my slacks, and I'm just kind of sitting there like this, right? And, bro, the reason is I thought I had made it then, bro. When
you
it was
did.
Funny. Dude, I had posted a picture of the trailer that we were living in at the time. It was a double wide trailer. It was a decent trailer. And I was like, man, so much has changed since then, or something like that. And my little niece posted on there, she said, man, I remember when you guys got that place. That was a come up for real.
So you and your wife moved into that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so your wife came back. You were allowed to see her. So, like, how long did you work at Walmart and get some
right away
time in?
I got scratched together right away. We ended up renting a trailer within 5 months.
So she was allowed to come back. Like, her dad, like, let her, like, you know, man, you.
Well, we were adults. We were adults. She could do whatever she wanted.
I know, but there's a lot of pressure, right, from the outside.
Sure,
right? You are a salesman, bro. I mean, I thought I could sell.
Dude, you can sell. You can sell, bro. I already know it.
Not like
5 months. I got released in September, and by February of 2008, we were moving into our first trailer together.
God,
and again,
man,
dude,
so awesome.
like I remember that, dude. I was sitting on our front porch, me and Heather. We were getting Rent-A-Center was delivering some furniture, right? Like this is where I was. The furniture that we had that Rent-A-Center was replacing, I had found behind a furniture store, and I brought it home. But again, Benny, you couldn't tell me shit. I told her on my front porch, sitting. When I say front porch, I mean the front step, okay, not a porch. Yeah. But anyway, I said to her, this was funny as shit, and you could have taken this two different ways. I chose to take it positively. I said to my wife, I said, babe, I could be here with you for the rest of our lives, and I'd be just fine. And she looked at me and she said, this will do for now. Now, a lot of people could have taken that, you know, oh, she's not grateful for whatever. Bro, I took it like this. Damn, she thinks I could do more than this. And I was like, oh, my God, bro. So it just, I don't know, it just lit a fire under my ass, man. It just kept that fire going, dude. And in 2011, I started my first business. Left Walmart, took all the training I had while I was at Walmart.
How many years were you there at Walmart?
Almost exactly 4 years.
Wow. How much money were you making by the time you left?
Shit, crap. I was making
they don't promote people, even the high performers. Like,
well,
if you can't make yourself, if you couldn't become general manager of a store, like who can? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. So the thing was, the next promotion definitely included a background check. And so, but dude, you know what's funny is I was running Sporting Goods, and Sporting Goods sells guns. So one of my departments sold guns, and here I am, a 3-time freaking felon. And so I just never. Aren't you in the same neighborhood where you grew up? I'm assuming. Yes.
Like, how did like all your boys and all the people be like, oh, that's Bobby. He's a freaking nutbag. Like, I think that never happened at all. Like,
it happened, but I feel
but no one's got awareness. It's not like those guys. You're not like your managers like living a better life. I mean, right? Like, it's like they're all everyone's just out the lunch, right?
We're still all in the hole together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. But still, man, this is incredible. I'm telling you, man, if Walmart really wanted to get in front of this. They put down a little movie about how you can make the come up, right? You know, they could doctor a couple things up if they want to.
Yeah,
make it
look
good for the brand.
Clean it up a little bit, yeah.
That would be that's a heck of, man, this is a good story. Dude, you almost had me in tears for a second. I almost started welling up. I was thinking about your wife, and I'm thinking about her, man. I'm thinking about what's inside her. Man, I want to know her. I want to know what is inside that little heart, man, because, that is...
She's definitely the real hero of the story, dude. Like, I
don't know. Mr. Sorbinski's pretty freaking up there.
Yeah. Or the guy, you know what I mean?
Or the guy that we don't have a name for, but your boy Big Fish is like, I don't know. If I ever get some free time on my hands, I might just come out to Delaware with the camera crews.
We're going to research this one.
Investigative journalism. I want to get that story out. I want to be the producer of that documentary, man, because that thing, that's awesome.
Crazy,
so what'd you do after Walmart?
So, believe it or not, this is going to sound crazy. I got fired from Walmart. Out of nowhere, right?
I had too many ideas, bro.
Dude, I got fired from Walmart out of nowhere on something that was really, really stupid. It was a policy thing, and all I did was override a transaction, and I used my supervisor's numbers because I was on the register at that moment, so I couldn't use my own. And everybody was doing it, and they ended up doing some sort of audit at that time and ended up firing me for it. But whatever, it is what it is.
Corporate.
It saved my life. Again, I go back to this every single time.
You
every
still be
single
there,
thing.
bro.
Yeah, dude, I probably fucking would be. I'm sorry, I don't mean to curse
you'd be
on
like the assistant general manager right now that they have to kind of hide from corporate because they didn't want you to take the background test, so they would have just kept shoveling you through because they need you.
Yeah, you're
and you
probably
needed
right,
them.
man.
Because, that's heaven for you at the time.
Yeah. So it was interesting because at the time it was late December or November. I get fired and I don't know what I'm going to do. I got just my youngest daughter was born in 2009 and this was 2010. So she was very young. And so, or was it? It was 2010. And so I end up getting this job. I found this job on Craigslist, right? Of all places. But I was desperate. I sold my car. I was trying to pay bills. I was like just desperate at the time, right?
It's close to like LinkedIn or Indeed. You know, it's the next
right. Yeah, exactly. So I call this guy. He's got an ad in Craigslist for a job passing out flyers door to door. And I'm like, okay. I hit him up. He's like, I tell him my story. I tell him, I'm like, look, I've been in some trouble, this and that. He's like, dude, don't worry about it. I start with him, and I'm canvassing door to door, setting up estimates for a roofing company, okay, which I never even knew was a thing until then. But I get into that. I start doing really well with it. I'm crushing it. And my manager comes to me. He's like, hey, man, have you ever thought about going into sales? And I was like, I love selling. He's like, yeah, but do you understand, like, it's full commission sales. So if you don't sell something, you don't get paid anything. I was like, but wait, if I sell a lot, I get paid a lot? He's like, yeah, a lot. And I was like, I'm in.
Sign me up.
Yeah, so they put me through this sales training with one of the managers at the time, which is crazy because he's also that same guy that trained me in sales back then is my director of operations now here at Brightside. But we'll get to that story later. But anyway, so I get into sales. I get into sales training. The training is almost over, and they're like, "Hey, listen, we got a couple extra leads tonight that we don't have salespeople for. If you want to take a crack at one of these leads, by all means, go and do so." And I was like, "Sure, hell yeah! I'm not getting any younger." So I run the first lead, I sell it, and I sell the next two, and the whole company is like, nobody sells their first lead and damn sure don't sell their first three leads, right? So I was like, okay, well, I thought you all sent me out here to sell the damn things. That's what I thought I was there to do, right? So I end up crushing it, but my background in canvassing saves the day because every time that there's ups and downs and lead flow and swings and how busy we are, the salesman at the sales meetings would be like, oh, it's a slow time of the year. I was like, no, it's a slow time of the year for you, big dog, because I'm going to go get mine. I got something firing me up right now, so I'm gonna go get mine. And I ended up making more money than I'd ever seen before in a few months in selling, you know. And it was the first time in my life that I was really exposed to the entrepreneur way of thinking, where like I can go out right now, work my ass off, and it's going to give me results right now. I'm not going to go out here, bust my ass, get a promotion, 2 years from now see a raise. Like I really started to understand what it was like to be an entrepreneur in that role. And
what was the first one of what was the first big check you remember? How much was it?
$7,500.
And then would you take it home to the wife? I mean, I'm sure you already knew it was coming because you're a math guy and you're probably doing the thing.
Right.
You and your wife are probably like, I can't wait to get it.
Yeah.
What'd you guys do with it?
Paid off bills, dude. Paid off bills, man. Yeah.
See ya.
And yeah. And I needed to get a car because I was driving around in this hoopty Daewoo. My dad actually sold it to me for like $500, bro.
I remember the Daewoos where I used to work at a Ford store, and I remember Daewoo.
It was like a Daewoo Laganza or something like that. It was this terrible little piece of crap car. And one day, it was crazy. Like I told you, my daughter was young at the time, and this was right before I started making decent money with sales. I had gone out late at night to go get some diapers, and I went to like the local Walgreens or pharmacy or whatever, and I pull up, I park the car, and at the time, I had an antifreeze leak. So I had been putting water in my radiator to keep it going, but I would put just enough in to get me from where I was to where I was going because I knew if I left it in there, it was going to freeze the block and crack the block and I would have problems. And so I end up parking the car, going into Walgreens, coming back out, and I see oil pouring out from underneath this Daewoo. And it's middle of the night, February, right? I'm freezing cold. Now I've got like a 2-3 mile walk back to my house because I didn't have a cell phone. And in that moment, dude, I was like, I'm not going to live life like this. I know I cannot live life like this. I can't keep doing this. So when I made that first money in sales, I got a car, I paid off bills, and it wasn't long before the subcontractor of that company reached out to me and said, hey, I'm going to start my own roofing company, and I'd love for you to be a partner in it. And so I said, let's do it.
You saw the bright side.
Yeah. So let's do it, right? We started a roofing business, and he says, dude, this is how much things cost. And I was selling like at 3 times that, right? So the problem was even though I had been selling like that, I thought that the right strategy, I hadn't been a business owner before. I was like, if this is our cost, we don't need to get rich on one job. Let's play the volume game, and let's be cheaper than everyone else, and let's make money that way, right? So we were an overnight success. The first year in business, we did $2 million. The second year, this was 2011.
2011 was your first year in roofing, and you started with this guy with this.
We started like late 2011. So the first calendar year was 2012.
The guy that gave you the shot with the canvassing, you made some money. Like how'd that departure go? Was that all right? I mean, like did you handle?
Yeah, I mean they were bummed out because we ended up opening an office right down the street. So it really wasn't a shot at them. It was just we got a good deal on that place, but they got a little bent out of shape. They're not in business anymore though, but. But anyway, we started a business.
Mr. Brightside, that's why.
We started a business with the mindset of being the cheapest roofers in town.
And you have to be at first. I mean, kind of. I mean, a little bit. I mean, because you don't know, right? Because you don't know, so you ended. That's not terrible. It's not terrible.
Unless
you kept being the cheapest.
Unless we kept, which we did. And so we were a revolving door. We were a 7-figure business right away, woo, but we didn't have any money to show for it. And so, I remember I was on an ABC Supply, trip. They give out those trips and stuff. And I was on the cruise ship. I saw everybody
just go to Jamaica recently. Yeah.
I know. I chose not to go this year. I did the rebate instead with ABC, but anyway. 2013, I'm on the ABC Supply trip, and I'm sitting down with one of the ABC guys, and he leans over to me and says, hey, man, don't worry about the account stuff. We'll figure that out when we get back. Don't stress over it. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I had no clue because my partner handled all of that stuff. And I'm not like I'm responsible. I should have known more. I should have been a little bit more aware of that kind of stuff. But I didn't know business. I didn't know anything about that
marketing
shit.
And sales. He's operations and finance. Right?
He came to me. He already had accounts with ABC. I didn't know like any of that stuff. He would come in every Friday. He'd be like, we got to give $5,000 to ABC or $10,000 to ABC. I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't know that was like barely keeping our account alive. You know what I mean? And so anyway, so that's when I first realized we were in some financial trouble. And so my sales manager at the time knew of all this, and he offered to buy me out of my partnership, and I took it. I was like, I'm out. And so I left. I sold my share of the business to another gentleman that was working with the company. I left, and I started Brightside. And when I started Brightside, Benny, I said, this time we're going to be the most expensive roofers in our area completely. And I'm just going to find a way to pack enough value into our offering to make too much sense for our customers. And that's exactly what we did. Since day one, when Brightside started, we've been the most expensive in our county by far. And we're probably in the state, the 5th or 6th highest priced roofers in the state. And because of that, I was able to invest back into the company so much more. I was able to do so much more for the community. We've been donating 4 roofs per year to Habitat for Humanity since we started. I've been able to do so much more for my team, investing back into the business to build out in certain areas. I've been able to market differently. I've been able to build relationships differently. That was one thing that we did a lot different with this business versus the first one, was we really leaned into relationship building as our main marketing strategy, and it has just paid off big time. There's more referrals. We do at least $1 million a year in straight referrals through a networking group that I also own as well now.
So what year did you start Brightside?
2013.
13.
Yep.
Wow. Well, listen, I think that's a great place to kind of like put a button on it. I mean, because I want to like then do another one of these with you. Let's talk, talk more about that part of it.
Yeah.
But bro, that's like, and I'm sure I only got the Cliff Notes. Like I get it. 'Cause, like there's a lot more.
Like, speed through this stuff, dude. We could be here all day.
I never re-listen to my own podcast, because I'm actually doing it, so it's like, it's like a conversation. But I'm going to re-listen to this one because I'm going to pick out some spots that I want to go back in on, and then I want to visit, the business side of things, because I want to, figure out how you learn, because you didn't really learn business. Like I had my uncle that was, pretty successful at business. I got to learn a lot of good things from him. You learned a lot. You're just figuring it out, man. Like you are literally the best. You're the best case study for someone that just like Gets hit in the head, figures it out. Gets hit in the head, figures it out. There's a lot, man.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
There's so many lessons here. I'm still perplexed. Like what? Like you're like a unicorn. You know that though. That's why you're like on stages. That's why you're doing all the speaking. I mean, like,
yes.
I wanted to get into that. We haven't even talked about that yet.
So yes. Let me say just a couple of things, and then we'll close for sure. I want to respect your time, but yes, but I'm not though. In a lot of ways, there's so many kids out there, dude, that have given up because they think that the opportunities that you and I are living are outside of their reach. And my mission now is to let them know how realistic it is for them to succeed, right? It's not that they can't do it, dude. It's really not. It's that they've convinced themselves, or other people have convinced them, that that is for people that are cut from a different cloth. And that's just not reality, you know? And I think if we can get that message to the right kids, man, you'll see that there's a lot more of me out there. There's a lot more of me out there.
No, I know there's a lot more. I'm talking about, though, like...
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
They're up and comers right now. They're not. They actually haven't put the work in. Nobody's believed in them yet.
Yep.
You know, because it's constant, right? You know this. Like some of these kids, they need constant attention. Like it's not going to just be like, oh, you go do a speech and all of a sudden, like, you know, they start taking off because again, maybe they haven't found their brick wall yet. They need mentored a little bit more. You know, we can get in a whole podcast just about that, how we go to do that, because I'm with you, man. Like if we can help, like, you know, these young kids, you know, or people that have been in a tough situation, we can change the world. I mean, one person at a time. And
because them underdogs, boy, they once they get going, they don't stop going.
It's like gas on a fire, baby.
Yeah. Last thing I wanted to share with you. This was like one of those validating moments for me, right? Almost 10 years after I was released from prison. So in 2018, I was nominated for Young Professional of the Year in my state. The governor of the state of Delaware issued me my Young Professional of the Year award almost 10 years after I was released from prison. And I'm like, you know, in that moment, dude, it was like, if this is possible, so much more is, dude. So much more is. It was just a crazy moment for me, bro. Did
he expunge all the other felonies on your record while he was out there?
Nope, I've kept every single one of them, dude. And part of it is because now everybody's like, you should just go ahead and get them expunged. But the reality for me is like, I want people to see that you could do it with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So,
how do you get approved through Google My Business listing?
What's that?
How do you get approved with a green check on Google Guaranteed? You got a partner or something to do that?
No, I'm the only owner at Brightside.
Are you able to do a Google Guarantee? They don't like check your record or nothing? No background?
I guess they don't go back that far because I got my Google Guarantee.
Dude, that's good. Because my two felonies that I actually got expunged. So I was, I never had I never had a history though. So like I was able to like 3 years later just do some paperwork, and it was good, man. Well, listen, this was awesome. By the way, just so everybody at home's listening, this is the first time we've ever actually talked in person. It sounds like we've been boys forever, right?
Yep, facts.
Because I guess when you have the similar stories and you kind of get what we get, like you understand it. It's like we're kindred spirits. I got a couple people I want to introduce you to. If someone wants to get a hold of you, man, they want to like get more information on following you or supporting your cause and keeping up with you. What's the best way to contact you?
Probably Instagram. I mean, I'm on Facebook, Bobby Jones on Facebook, but Instagram is Mr. Brightside, but it's all separated by underscore. So it's underscore Mr. underscore Bright underscore side underscore. But it'll work. The name of my company is Brightside Roofing, and everybody started calling me Mr. Brightside, and I just said, you know what, I'll run with it. So I've always been, not always, but I've always been since that moment a very optimistic person. Always looking at things that like the glass, half full, and so it fit, it fit very well.
And I think people will realize, like when you have when you hit, rock bottom, or you think your life is over and you have another chance, and there's nothing worse than I think about that. I'm sure we could talk about some other adversities and stuff like that, but you have a stomach for a lot. You can handle a lot. So like every day is like sunshine and rainbows, where other people are going to get caught up in the struggle, get caught up in this because they don't know what they don't know. And unfortunately, a lot of people have to find out the hard way. It's our job. I'm going to help maybe inspire you to like keep on going. I want you to help me keep on going because we have a story to tell. And we have to inspire a bunch of winners because there's winners out there that don't think they're winners right now. We just got to turn them into winners.
That's right. That's right.
They got to do the work. I mean, all we got to do is they can. One part of that story clicks for them. It could change the whole rest of their trajectory. And then they have a mentor like you, to somebody to ask questions to as long they're going along their journey. And that's all they need, man. Somebody to check in with. So kudos to you for everything you've accomplished so far. I'm looking forward to get to know you more. I really appreciate your time today.
Appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you, and thank you for, to the listeners for listening to this story, and hopefully it inspired some people. I'm grateful, man.
I got 5 questions that I ask every guest at the end, kind of like a rapid fire thing.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
Imagine I'm putting you on an island completely by yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And I tell you got to take one book with you. What book you taking with you?
Ah, man, that's a tough one. You know what though? In that situation, I'd probably take the 4 Agreements.
Okay, 4 Agreements. All right, what movie are you taking with you?
That's also a tough one. Damn, dude. I should have prepared for this a little bit better.
No, it's just a gut instinct, man. Like, what movie are you taking with you? I don't know. What's your favorite movie that you can watch over and over again?
Dude, I'd have to go The Greatest Showman.
All right. Greatest Showman. That's the first for this show. 4 Agreements, I think it's been said before. You have to put a restaurant there. You got to eat, bro. Like, you can pick any restaurant. It could be some little hole in the wall you know of, famous restaurant, franchise. What you building on your island?
I don't care. I could eat anything. I'd probably go like,
got to build something.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd do a Chick-fil-A. How about that?
Chick-fil-A, I like it, man.
Some grilled chicken, you know what I mean?
How may I serve you? Yeah, there you go. You're allowed to take one vacation. You can go anywhere in the world for a week. Where are you going?
Well, if I'm stranded on the island, I'll probably come back home.
So you're going to Delaware. All right.
Yeah.
And then you're allowed to spend 24 hours with one person. It could be somebody past, present, famous, non-famous. Who do you want to spend 24 hours with and pick their brain?
Damn, dude. I'd probably have to go Kurt Warner.
Kurt Warner. You love those underdogs.
Yes, sir.
I got one other question for you. I can't help it. I got thousands of questions for you. You mentioned something earlier that, you were on your knees, you were praying. Do you believe in God?
Man, that's a loaded question right now, man. I feel called in a certain way, but
that's
I believe. God. I know, bro. I believe more in you do good, you get good. So I don't want to just say karma, but I believe more in the balance of good versus bad, bro. If I put out bad, which I did before, I got bad. When I started putting good into this world, I got it tenfold. My why and what fuels me, dude, is I owe the world good because I gave it so much bad. I got to give back to a world I once took from.
What do you think happens to you when you die?
Dude, this is a loaded question, bro. I don't know, man. I don't know. I guess, and maybe there's a lot of flaws in this mentality, but I just want to be remembered, bro. There's a saying my buddy Mike Faber says all the time. He says, you die twice. Once when you pass on in flesh, and once the last time your name is said. And I just want my name to be said.
I'm going to talk to you about that. I think I was divinely meant to meet you.
There's a very good chance of that. And, as I stated earlier, I don't ignore that.
I'm a born-again Christian. I was saved when I was 7 years old and experienced a life of craziness and wildness and lots of heartache. And I will tell you that without Jesus Christ in my heart, that I would not be the person I am today. And I also think that I'm sure you've heard that story, right? I'm sure you're familiar with the Bible a little bit, but I want to talk to you more about that because you have something inside of you that I just think that you just need to uncover. And
I've felt extremely
you're called lately. Oh, you are.
Last night I ran.
That's God.
Yeah. I literally ran into a lady I don't even know last night. I was out watching the games with my friends, and she's been messaging me all day about going to church. Like, literally,
Dude, see? And now what? Look at me pressing you. And I'm not even pressing you. That's because we're still on the air. So, but I'm going to chat with you about this because you sir, you deserve to be in heaven when you pass away because it's eternity, right? And then we got to talk to your wife and kid about that. How many kids you got now?
I got 2 girls.
2 girls. They deserve to go there too. So we'll chat later about that. If you guys got value out of this podcast, please like, subscribe, put some comments, put some questions. What was your favorite part of the Bobby Jones, Mr. Brightside story that you would like to hear a little bit more about, because I'm going to have this guy back on, and I'm sure we'll be running into each other, at future conferences, events. I might even have to come out to Delaware. I'm telling you, I want to find Mr. Sorbinski. So I'm telling you, I'm coming. But appreciate your time today, man. And we'll see you guys on another edition of the Big Fish Cares podcast. Every Friday we release a new episode. See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Big Fish Cares podcast.